So sad. So sad. So sad.
Hi everyone and welcome to Priority Holder, and today we'll be playing Grixis Enter the Infinite combo in the Timeless format. Now the way we win is by resolving Enter the Infinite. So it's a 12 mana sorcery that draws your whole deck and then lets you put a card back on top. And so once we've cast this and have our whole deck, then we can dump a bunch of Chrome Moxes into play and win with the Thassa's Oracle trigger, or possibly with the Jace Wielder of Mysteries activation. Now, you may see that this is hard to cast, and so we have two different ways to cheat it into play, both of which need this in the graveyard. So one way is to reanimate a Scholar of the Lost Trove, which when it enters the battlefield lets us free cast Enter the Infinite and then go off from there. The other way is simply by casting Mizzix Mastery, which lets us cast an instant or sorcery from our graveyard. So we have a lot of ways to you're dedicated to putting stuff in the graveyard. Faithless Looting, Izzet Charm, which can do a little bit of everything, and Cathartic Reunion. So we're trying to dump the right stuff into the graveyard and just go for the combo win. Any hand that has a Faithless Looting plus like part of the combo, like we have Scholar in hand, is already pretty good. Now this is a one lander, so okay, so that Faithless Looting already solved it. So it's unclear how good Fury is going to be in this matchup. We don't have a companion to sort of tell us. Sometimes against hand disruption you want to play out the Chrome Moxes, so I'm just going to put down a Fury, even though it might have been useful to pitch cast Fury using Fury, so we'll have to see. Alright, Artifact land on the other side, Mishra's Bauble. It's already abundantly clear that this is an affinity deck. So 3 artifacts turn 1 is not great for us because they're going to be able to cost reduce everything with affinity. So the question is, do we Izzet Charm here? Do we Faithless Looting? Do we, Faithless Looting hold up Izzet Charm? I decide just to be more mana efficient. Trying to see what we have going on, and I decide I end up casting the Faithless Looting from hand, even though we could have done the one from the graveyard. And we did find and Enter the Infinite. So now it's a matter of finding either Mizzix Mastery or Reanimate. So at this point, I'm just going all in the combo, pitching the Fury, and just we're basically not gonna have any defense this game. We're trying to rush to one of our combo pieces. We have both things we need in the graveyard. Right, there's an Ornithopter on the other side of the battlefield. Here's where things can start getting wild for them. So they have 3 mana available thanks to Springleaf Drum. And there's the Synthesizer. So that card is just cracked in affinity decks, like makes your Frogmites, Mirror Enforcers, all sorts of stuff turn into Constructs basically. So not to mention the Scry 2, it gets out of hand quickly. So let's see if they have any follow-ups. And I'm just bracing myself for like intermediate cards, but they didn't have anything, so we're gonna fire off the Izzet Charm. I mean, we could have countered that, but like we are so close to just winning. This sucks. So we have to discard 2. Be so nice to like, do you keep the 1 ring and hope you draw a land? But this deck doesn't play that many lands. That's what I end up doing, but maybe I should have just kept. Anyway, it's hard to say, but I was a little optimistic there, keeping the 1 ring. We can also still win with the Mizzix Mastery or Reanimate. Now there's the Mastery. The problem is we got rid of our lands earlier, so that's the argument against pitching the lands in that spot. So, and the other tough thing is like we have to put Thassa's Oracle in the graveyard. So like we could still win. We have Jace, or we could either set up one of our Chrome Moxes to reanimate Thassa's Oracle. Now Refurbished Familiar is really bad news. Thankfully we still have Mizzix Mastery. So another Refurbished Familiar basically just closed the door on us. Now unfortunately for us, the opponent already has just like a million power on board, like giant 8/8s, and Synthesizer's gone up. So basically it's now or nothing. It's this turn, and we happen to spike the Reanimate at the last possible second. So here's how the combo goes. So we reanimate Scholar of the Lost Trove, which lets you free cast an instant or sorcery. Free cast Enter the Infinite, draw our entire deck, and then we have to put 1 card back on top of our library. So just anything that's not a Chrome Mox is basically fine. Now we still have 2 available mana, so we could like play out all the Chrome Moxes and play Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. However, I'm just going to simplify it and use the Thassa's Oracle in the graveyard. It is good practice to play out all your Chrome Moxes, like, and that way you can have up an Izzet Charm as like a soft counter in case the opponent tries to interrupt it somehow. So like these affinity decks can sometimes play like Metallic Rebuke. So I'm doing my due diligence here by setting up a bunch of defensive spells, which hopefully we don't need. So attempt to put Thassa's Oracle into play. It does in fact work, and we win the game. So that's how it can go, and it does get pretty sketchy at times because you're not playing much defense, and we have a lot of painful mana base cards, you know. So gonna Faithless Looting. Now this was a potential like in turn 1 setup, so gonna pitch a spare ring and this, of course, the Scholar. Now the thing is, Scholar can reanimate a 1 ring, you know, so like that is like something you don't get the ring protection because you don't cast the ring, but it's something you can do. All right, Chrome Mox on the other side of the battlefield. Opponent's doing something crazy. All right, so they tuck a Grief under it, and I'm like, oh great, are we getting super scammed right now? But an opponent plays Stitcher Supplier. So they have access to a lot of mana. Okay, couple Sorens at the graveyard, and they just pass. Okay, so we're very grateful they didn't grief us, but they must be. I mean, they obviously have some sort of combo stuff going on because they have Soren, so like they're trying to either assemble that or possibly something else with the Stitcher Supplier in there. Fury doesn't seem very useful, and so here's something I could do right here. Is reanimate the Sphinx, and then free cast the Reanimate to bring back Fury, and just put a ton of stats in the battlefield. Not to mention it gives rid of their fodder for a Phyrexian Tower. So it just puts us like 11 power on board and makes them have something. So that's something I could have done. And seeing the Necropotence hit the battlefield, it makes me wish I would have done that because we could have denied them, you know, some of the mana to make that work. So I'm going to accelerate through this. So the opponent is going to activate Necro a bunch of times. And as we're waiting for that, if you enjoy seeing combo decks showdown, please Sonic Assault the like button. So the opponent's going to Necro a certain amount. And trying to judge what's going on. So they have a Priest of Gix in the graveyard. So it's some sort of creature-based combo deck, like using like Mox Jet, or not Mox Jet. Anyway, the cost-reducing black one. I'm blanking on the name right now. And so that's giving me a little bit of alarm bells right here. So I'm trying to think what to do. We still have the Scholar plus Fury line, though we'd be at like an extremely low life total. What I opt to do here is do Scholar and also flashback Reanimate. But I'm going to take their Priest of Gix, which does 2 things. It gets us enough mana to cast the 1 ring, and it denies them Priest of Gix, like reanimation, to start some sort of combo. So, and going to slam the ring, playing the land first, that way we still can use Faithless Looting, you know. So hopefully, you know, I'm not sure if that was like the best line. It honestly would have been better to probably just Scholar plus Fury on I think it was turn 2. Definitely going to fire off Faithless Looting here. We still are hoping to win through our own combo, though we have to do some new setup. Okay, so there's an Enter the Infinite. So basically, if we can untap, we already have Mizzix Mastery, and so we can win through our own. We can win through our own combo on our turn. The question is, you know, how wild can they go with Necro and a bunch of mana? All right, so we have to see what the opponent has in store. I don't know if they have like March of Wretched Sorrow to like punch one of our creatures and gain a ton of life. You know, that's one thing you have to worry about against the Necro decks. Alright, Stitcher Supplier. So they might be setting up some sort of... I don't know if the Stitcher Suppliers are in there just to mill over Saint Linda and possibly like reanimate it, and then Soren is for when it's in your hand. The opponent hit a pretty, you know, decent amount of... Alright, so they're tucking a Necro under a Chrome Mox, so they have a ton of mana still available. if they can put something together. And, alright, so they're putting together something. And I'm just hoping it's not like a Grey Merchant. Okay, so Diabolic Intent is exceptionally bad news. But thankfully they're like really low on mana. They can generate up to 3 mana right now by sacking the Freebooter to Phyrexian Tower. I don't know exactly what they tutored for though, so they're just gonna Necro and then pass to us. So we fall to 5. And I'm just praying they don't have anything at like instant speed to like chip away the rest of the life. Or if this would be the worst case scenario, if they have a surgical extraction, that would just really mess us up. But I'm going to attempt to Mizzix Mastery the Enter the Infinite and set up the combo, and the opponent packs it in. So whatever they didn't quite get there on their setup. Maybe we interrupted their combo by reanimating the creature. I choose to think that was part of the plan, you know. But anyway, we got there and we're under the next game. Chrome Mox tucking an Izzet Charm. You really don't want to tuck a Thassa's Oracle because that's one of your win conditions. Then you're all the way reliant on Jace. Like, even if Thassa's Oracle's in our graveyard, we can get it back, you know. So you don't want it exiled, is what it comes down to. Alright, Deathrite Shaman. Now, often, if that's most other 1-mana creatures, we could just fire off Izzet Charm's card draw mode just to try and dig for something. However, Deathrite Shaman can police the graveyard, specifically our spells in the graveyard, which is not good. Not to mention it's an accelerant for the opponent, so it seemed like a good target for Izzet Charm. Now this is excellent here. We're getting to Surveil away, Enter the Infinite, put it in the graveyard right exactly where we want it. And so that was pretty fortunate for us. Our opponent's going to crack the fetch. And let's see what the opponent has in store for us. Alright, Malevolent Rumble. So the opponent's fishing for something. And we see Overlord and Sorin, so some sort of graveyard deck. Alright, so they take the Overlord. Alright, so it's almost all come together. We have the Reanimate, we have Entered the Infinite in the graveyard. We just need either to put a Sphinx in the graveyard or to find a Mizzix Mastery. So, gonna crack the fetch. And the opponent sacrifices in response. Anyway, they end up undoing. I guess they. Anyway, not sure what's going on there, but they undo it, and we're just going to grab a land, slam the One Ring, and just try and set up the combo. The opponent has something. I mean, maybe it's just priority for the Eldrazi spawn. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know if they have like. Part of me like, do they have like surgical or is something else? Chrome Mox not useful at the moment. So, all right. The opponent decides to Besage our Chrome Mox, and that doesn't seem like a very strong play because Besage lets you get any land with types, you know, so it's leaving us mana neutral, you know, like they're not really close to basic checking us, or it wouldn't even be basic checking, it's like land checking, you know. Not to mention that they miss a land drop to do that, so I think they would have been much better off slamming Besage and like casting the impending mode of Overlord or something like that, you know. So we found a Scholar, but we have no discard outlet at the moment. We have the Reanimate in hand. So but the opponent has us under no pressure. That the Besage play was pretty tough. Like, I really think they should have played it instead of doing that to us. Alright, so they're going to attempt to append Overlord at this point in time, and seeing how they're like sort of mana screwed, definitely going to sink into Stupor this, just really shut down any pressure they might have. Not to mention, Overlord can find like MDFCs, and yeah, the opponent just packs it in, so that was really nice. It was just a matter of time before we're going to set up that combo. Now this is a potential turn 1 Rin right here. Though it would take quite a lot. We'd have to actually, yeah, it's not quite there, because you have to get Scholar and Enter the Infinite in the graveyard, and then use a Chrome Mox to reanimate. So if the right things were in hand. Basically, you'd have to like pitch a red card into the Chrome Mox and have that ahead of time. So, however, we are most of the way there and against an energy deck very clearly. So, what do we need now? Now, the thing is, Guide of Souls can get pretty nasty really quick. So it's like, do we just, you know, shoot the Guide of Souls and keep moving on, or do we try to like hurriedly dig for a reanimation or a reanimate or Mizzix mastery? Decide to shoot down the Guide of Souls, and I'm not even certain that's correct, but you know, is it better to buy ourselves more time by killing it, or to dig faster down to the combo? You know, it's hard to say. All right, Juggernaut Peddler is really bad news. They're going to get to replace one of our cards with the Juggernaut, which is useless. So they're going to take our One Ring. However, thankfully we have stuff like Cathartic Reunion, so we can just get rid of the Juggernaut right away and try and find something useful. So I'm going to get rid of Sink into Stupor and the Juggernaut. Just keep like our fetch land. Try and draw something useful. So we did find a Faithless Looting and another Scholar of the Lost Trove. So here's the question. What do we do? Now, I think the best move is to use the Faithless Looting and try and set up a land number 4, basically. All right, there's a Chrome Mox. So definitely getting rid of Scholar. We don't need that. And do we... I think the best choice is to get rid of Scholar and... well, honestly, probably Scholar and Chrome Mox. Chrome Mox is not really doing anything for us right now. And then keep the Izzet Charm. So I don't know why I kept Chrome Mox there. Because ideally we'd be able to slam the land and then Mizzix Mastery, but we get hammered by Thassa, so the opponent misses a land drop, but that was like a pretty devastating Thassa. But we're going to get them with the old Thassa bug right here. So they took our Mizzix Mastery, and then we just rip one off the top to complete the combo win. Of course, barring like a surgical extraction, you know. So that is just absolutely incredible to spike the combo after all that disruption. So here comes Enter the Infinite. We draw a million cards. And I'm going to speed through this part. You've seen how the combo works before, so I'm going to accelerate through it. Now, there's different things you can do. Like, it is possible to win with Jace, Wielder of Mysteries also. Another thing to be cautious about is forced draw effects. Or them removing Thassa's Oracle with its trigger on the stack if we don't have any other blue devotion, because we still have one card left. So there are some things you have to like watch out for. But when you can hold up Izzet Charm, then you're like pretty safe against those kind of things. So that first hand was just it was all reanimates and like nothing. This hand is pretty nice. Multiple discard outlets. Gonna get rid of basic swamp. Chrome Mox for some acceleration. All right, Meticulous Archive is honestly not a great sign for us because well, we have some like soft counters to try and fight through stuff. So I tuck the Izzet Charm here. I think I should have just tucked the Fury. Can discard 2 cards. So this is an interesting choice. We're obviously facing like a control deck. It's like, do we just rush, like, do we just reanimate a Fury and try and like rush them down, you know? But the thing is, they're probably running stuff like swords, so, or even like 3 fairy to bounce it. So like, it'd be hard to go the distance with just like a solo Fury, even on turn 1. The thing is, like, getting under their counter magic is valuable though, so either way, we got rid of the Fury, but I think initially should have tucked under the Chrome Mox. So now we're missing land drops, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass. Like, I just didn't want to feed them a mana drain. You know, like if we Izzet Charm on our turn, they mana drain it, then they slam like Big Teferi, like that's just basically game over. So I'm gonna do Izzet Charm or draw a discard on their end step, That way if they counter it, like shields are down on our turn. Question is what to get rid of. Resolving the One Ring would be really nice. I decided to get rid of Reanimate and Fury. Let me draw a Faithless Looting. And just trying to give them the least juicy target for a mana drain, like just tiny spells. So there's Enter the Infinite. And I think, so this is tough. Do we keep the One Ring as like a bait spell to try and sneak our Mizzix Mastery through later? Because we have to discard a land, which might put us off, you know, even casting either of those spells for a while. So it's a tough call because you could have kept the 2 lands and guaranteed like Mizzix Mastery in one more turn. So Teferi Time Raveler is really tough. So I'm just bracing myself for them bouncing the Chrome Mox right here, which would be pretty devastating. But they end up just plussing, which I'm like, okay, thank goodness. All right, so we still have our Chrome Mox in play, but they could still have like Spell Pierce or something like that, you know. So it's all right. Sink into Stupor is land number 4. Painful, but we don't in this matchup. The life total obviously doesn't matter. So gonna bolt that land in. Now here's the question: do we just go for the combo, or do we throw out the bait spell first? So I decide just to go for it because there's a narrower margin of stuff they could have right now. So gonna attempt to just go for it right here. And they hit us with a Mana Tithe. It's like, oh man, that is extremely rough. And then here comes the Chrome Mox bounce, which is really devastating considering we have to pitch another card into that to make it work. And here comes Jace the Mind Sculptor. So things are unraveling pretty quickly for us. Now they are down to 1 mana up again. We draw land number 4, so gonna attempt to slam the One Ring. Now if this resolves, it could maybe allow us to like get back into this game by just presenting too many threats. So I'm gonna put One Ring on the stack, and they have another Mana Tithe, so that was really tough. And I think control decks are like a nightmare matchup for us as like a combo deck with not a ton of interaction. Like we have like no discard spells, only have a handful of soft counters. It's about, you know, you can still win if you can rush it out quick enough and like you know, maybe bait them into using counters on One Rings or something like that, you know. But the opponent is able to flash in a Treasure Cruise thanks to 3 Fairy right now, so it's looking pretty grim for us. But I'm still, you know, just due diligence, holding out hope. But it's like our like chance of winning just keeps shrinking drastically as the opponent just keeps accruing card advantage. And there comes to big Teferi, which they're obviously going to start marching up towards an ultimate.
No time for a break.
And the worst part about it is that it's going to untap some lands. So, all right, and they just put a island into play. You know, once they start pulling out Mystic Sanctuaries, you're basically as good as done. So now this deck doesn't run that many actual lands, so we're just going to pull out the Shock Land. There's like a tiny bit of thinning, and there's a Sink into Stupor. So that can do something. I'm going to attempt to flash back a Faithless Looting. Our opponent's just going to counterspell it. So Sink into Stupor could bounce something. So for the sake of your sanity, I'm do a massive time jump here. You know, I've been navigating and trying to get so I can make one last attempt. But as you could see, the opponent has the Spell Pierce, which we can pay for. But I was hoping to save up 3 extra mana for Sink into Stupor, but the opponent has collected so many answers at this point, they had us completely covered. So we move on to the next one. And yeah, that's probably the hardest matchup because, so interestingly, in initial builds of this deck, instead of Furies, I had Blood Moons because we don't need a ton of colors and Chrome Mox can sort of help us, and we run a ton of fetches. And Blood Moons can help in these against like the control decks and some other combo decks. but they do not that much against the creature matchups, and so that is one way like you can tweak the deck. And I don't know, maybe it's better to have Blood Moons instead of Furies. I'm not sure. But the opponent on their turn just fired off a life gain spell. Now we are really close to just hitting the combo right here. So have a land pocket, but we have everything you need in the graveyard. So either Reanimate or Mizzix Mastery is live. The opponent plays in a Johnny's Pride Mate. So they're clearly playing a life gain strategy. Now we are getting pretty flooded at the moment. So I've actually tried out these sort of life gain strategies, sort of like the new player arena kind of stuff. I'll go ahead and link the video right now. And though the thing is, I made that deck before Ocelot Pride and Guide of Souls, and so I think that strategy is even more juiced than it used to be. The problem is, if you're in mono white, like you're really soft to like combo decks and stuff like that. So I might revisit that at some point, but I'm just gonna slam the One Ring here. The opponent's missing land drops, and they don't really have that many life gain enablers yet. Like they have like Pride Mate as a payoff. All right, so there's the Daxos, and honestly, like I know Daxos gets you life like for your creatures coming and going, which is sort of appealing, but I think Soul Warden is just so much better. It just comes down earlier and gains life off your opponent's stuff also. So we're not under a ton of pressure, but just trying to find, oh yeah, already found what we needed to. There's the Mizzix Mastery, so we can move on with our lives now. Fire off the Enter the Infinite, and going just speed through this part. Yeah, play out all the Chrome Moxes once again for due diligence. Now I guess one thing you have to worry about against white decks is them doing Solitude against Thassa's Oracle if you don't have enough Blue Devotion with the one card left. So that is something you have to think about. I actually did consider putting like a single cycling land in the deck, like a Forgotten Cave or something like that, to clear the last card off the library in case they try and like remove Thassa's Oracle through, you know, like Solituding it or something like that. But if that is ever like in question, you could always just wait a turn and draw the last card, you know. So there's definitely something to that. Maybe it wouldn't even have to be a Forgotten Cave. Maybe it can be like a one of Lorien Revealed, and put like an island on top of your deck once you enter the Infinite. You know, so there's tricks you can do to be able to get down to 0 cards. The opponent is going off right now with Deathrite Shaman into Grief, which is pretty bad for us. And very curious to see what they take. Like maybe we might be getting scammed right here, like if with either with an Undying Effect or Reanimate. So interestingly, they left the Fury in hand for us. They took the Izzet Charm, and they're going to pass to us. Now, as I mentioned before, Deathrite Shaman is like just a massive problem by being able, it can just completely shut down the whole combo. So trying to frantically dig for something right here. Would prefer to pitch basically anything else into our Fury. So here's the question. Do you just cast Cathartic Reunion and try and draw into a different red spell? And that's what I try and do. I'm just going to pitch the lands and try and draw into something, because Cathartic Reunion still allows us to, like, you know, advance our game plan. So like this is a little greedy, but it just feels like we're doing nothing if we pitch cast Fury with the Cathartic Reunion. Now unfortunately we brick. We do not find a red card, so that is pretty unfortunate, because I mean Deathrite Shaman's going to get to start doing its work against us. So yeah, any red card right there would have been nice just to like cut down that Deathrite Shaman. The opponent also has blue mana, so might mean like Psychic Frogs or Oculus is in our future as well. Honestly, be happy with them. Well, actually no, Wielder would be really bad news, because that just bricks our Enter the Infinite combo. So yeah, so there are some things like Orcish Bowmasters is absolutely devastating. Same with Shieldred. So I guess that's one argument for putting Furies instead of Blood Moons, is to try and, like, I guess you need 2 Furies though to cut down a Shieldred. Yeah, there are certain things that this deck is vulnerable to, that's for sure. So they took the Fury, and we were stranded with just a bunch of not very functional cards. And the opponent's just sitting pretty over there with the Deathrite Shaman, crashing into Grief. Now, we only have 1 Surveil land, so don't even have like any more selection at this point. Just gonna do whatever little deck thinning we can do right now. But Psychic Frog's gonna close the door on us pretty quickly, not to mention Deathrite Shaman. Now, we actually drew Mizzix Mastery. So we are like super close to like firing off the combo. The problem is we have no discard right now. So, and once again, we are out of Surveil lands, which would be like really clutch. Now, once again, it would require the opponent to go completely shields down for us to even pull off the combo. So it is still very unlikely at this point, but it's not impossible. Like Faithless Looting could get us there. So, all right. So the opponent's crashing in with those creatures, and this is basically our last turn to, because then they could start pumping stuff into Psychic Frog. So, and Deathrite Shaman's gonna ding us. You know, so this. It's now or never at this point. So. Fetching one more time, hoping to draw like a Faithless Looting. And we drew the Faithless Looting, so I'm like, okay. But the thing is, the opponent has Deathrite up, so if they're savvy, they're going to interrupt this. But I'm going to make them have it, but they have an Orcish Bowmasters, which is really tough. But it's even worse than that, they have another Orcish Bowmasters, so we are just super mega dead no matter what. We draw a billion cards, they get a million Orcish Bowmaster triggers, and we're super dead. So that was unfortunate. That's a tough matchup. But we're on to the next one. Now this hand is a 1-lander, doesn't seem good enough. This one seems better, but still pretty horrible when you think about it. We have Fury but no pitch cards and no discard and a bunch of clunky stuff. So if we were to keep this hand, we'd bottom Jace. You know, that's a card we just hope to draw off, Enter the Infinite. But I don't think we can keep this hand. This deck can function reasonably well with a low amount of cards, because we're just trying to get certain things in the graveyard. And I'm like hesitant to get rid of it, but okay, so this hand looks a lot better. So we're gonna put an Enter the Infinite and a Fury back. This is just gonna be a no defense type of game right here. And going to play land and hope for the best. So really leaning on the Izzet Charm to set things up. So we like have the combo right now if we can fire off the Izzet Charm and put enough lands into play. So alright, opponent's gonna crack in response, and they're just getting a Surveil land, thankfully. Alright. We get to get our own Surveil land. And there's an Enter the Infinite. Okay, so that's perfect. And there's a Scholar, which is excellent. And I'm just gonna hold up Izzet Charm in case there's like something nasty, like they try and slam like a Goblin Charbelcher. You know, we'd obviously want to counter that. So, alright, Strike it Rich. That makes me nervous because if this is a Phoenix deck, they tend to rock Surgical Extraction, which is just incredible against us. So I'm feeling a lot less good seeing Strike It Rich. So gonna just gonna go for it anyway. Like honestly, well, I guess Orcish Bowmasters would be horrible because then we can't use Enter the Infinite. Yeah, there's a lot of things that could be bad in this spot. So, but I'm just gonna fire off Izzet Charm. And they just grab another Surveil land. Okay, so they put a creature in the bin, and we draw land and Thassa's Oracle. So definitely gonna put those in the bin. And we draw Jace. Now this is a little bit of a dangerous situation. If they can like, anyway, we have both of our win conditions in hand right now. So we do have to be cautious Alright, so the opponent is playing an alchemy card called Razor Demon, which is not one that like encountered before, but basically it's an overstated creature. It's like a 3-mana 7/7, but the catch is that it lets the opponent cast a spell for free, and so from its spellbook. And so of the different spells, this is what we get. And I'm doing like a quadruple take right here because you could see that one of the spells we are offered is I'm just getting 100% sure about the grid. One of the spells we're being offered right here is Ever After, which reanimates a creature. So I'm casting Ever After. Basically, the opponent's spell has like unwittingly helped us execute our combo. So I'm putting Scholar in and casting Enter the Infinite, putting a card back. Now we don't have like Born Upon a Wind to like win at instant speed or anything like that. However, the opponent's like mostly tapped out and like has executed the combo for us. So going to play out all the Chrome Moxes here just for due diligence once again, to have as many Izzet Charms as necessary up. But yeah, we just slammed the Thassa's Oracle thanks to the opponent's alley-oop right there. So that was an unexpected one. Anyway, that was a very funny one. So it's at this point I realize I made a mistake. You could see me just like, oh no, like slamming the Z button, but at that point you can't undo it, because what we could have done is tucked Sink into Stupor under Chrome Mox, fetched for red source, and done turn 1 Cathartic Reunion. So that was a pretty big misstep because we could have had our combo pieces in the graveyard already. So you have to be careful like that. Like I just rushed right into it and didn't think things through. So, you know, we do have it on turn 2, but you know, speed is of the essence in this format. Alright, so do we play out the Chrome Mox? It's a green-white land over there. Like, the main thing we'd be worried about is like Thoughtseize or Juggernaut Peddler or something like that. So now we will just sort of let Ocelot Pride do its thing. So alright, it's a Birthing Ritual, which is just an awesome card. I'll link a Birthing Ritual deck right here. I love that card. And let's see if the opponent finds anything. Alright, so they don't find anything either useful or that they're willing to sacrifice their creatures for. So, alright, now we're going to fire with Faithless Looting, pitch Enter the Infinite, and trying to figure out what else. So I was going to pitch Enter the Infinite, then I'm like, well, I guess because I already have one in the graveyard, I could keep that as Chrome Mox fodder, you know? So that now I'm deciding like what lands to get rid of. And typically you want to get rid of like your fetch lands above anything else because they run out of targets. So kept the Enter the Infinite on purpose to feed to Chrome Mox, and going to just shock the land in just to hold up Sink into Stupor, like against something particularly nasty from the opponent. So once again, Mizzix Mastery or Reanimate, and then we are off. So alright, now this is me setting a stop on their second main phase in case I want to bounce the Birthing Ritual. So waiting to see what else the opponent has. Ocelot Pride, not even, you know, it doesn't even matter if we Sink into Stupor that, and then another copy of Birthing Ritual. So I will just bounce that one. Unfortunately, we'll no matter what have a copy of Birthing Ritual, but if they have 2 of them out, then they can work their way up the chain and like find some pretty nasty stuff or go crazy with ETBs. So now they just have 1 Birthing Ritual, and it's just going to limit their options to what they can even grab, and it is a Juggernaut Peddler. Now this is actually pretty devastating. Juggernaut Peddler exiles Thassa's Oracle, so we can't even reanimate it now. So it's Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, or bust at this point, and we're just dying to like cat tokens at this point. So obviously going to discard the Juggernaut, and like I said before, it's in our best interest to discard the fetch lands if you are discarding lands, because they run out of targets. So we have a shock land in hand also. So it is sometimes necessary to do like a graveyard check to see what targets you have left for it, like certain fetch lands, which is probably what I'm doing right here. I'm trying to decide if it's worth it to shock in the Izzet Charm. I end up playing the fetch because we can get the Surveil land if we don't need to Izzet Charm. Now there's the City's Blessing, so basically we have one more turn. The opponent's going to deal enough damage here and make enough cats that they're going to kill us the next turn. So it's basically a matter of how crazy can they go with their birthing rituals, like burning up the chain. Alright, so there's an Overlord of the Belmerk. Awesome card. It's rapidly become one of my favorite cards of all time. It is just so cool. And there's another Juggernaut Peddler. Oh my goodness. So now here's the question. Is it even worth using Izzet Charm at this point? We can shoot down one of the creatures to give them like less birthing ritual options. Or we can dig for something. So the thing is, if we find a spell, it's useless because it's just going to get turned into a Juggernaut. So I decide, all right, I'm just going to discard the One Ring and the Scalding Tarn and just blank their target for Juggernaut Peddler. Now we have some live draws right here. If we don't die like off like Siege Rhino or something, I guess they can't put a Siege Rhino with only a single birthing ritual, but if we survived our turn, we still have draws. Now Reanimate no longer works because our life total is too low. It has to be a Mizzix Mastery, which we happen to draw. Now here's the question though. Can we generate enough mana to win off a Jace? So the opponent's shield's down right now. So we're going to fire off Enter the Infinite. And it turns out we have enough mana to make it work. So we're going to speed through this part. We know what's going to happen. We're going to play out the Chrome Moxes. Now the thing is, we have a land drop and we have 3 Chrome Moxes. So we're like comfortable amount of mana left to play Jace and win off him. So this is why you diversify the win cons just a little bit in here. So we're going to mill and then win off the Jace at the last possible second. So that was just like an awesome win against Birthing Ritual. So this hand is pretty sweet. The closest we've been to like a turn 1 win the entire runs thus far. This deck is capable of it, but it requires like the stars lining like pretty perfectly. Oh wait, it doesn't have the turn 1, it doesn't have Faithless Looting. What am I talking about? Alright. Anyway, Ocelot Pride from the opponent. Now I think that this deck that I'm playing is good against red-white energy, but not red-black energy, because red-black energy tends to have Juggernaut Peddlers and or Orcish Bowmasters. And so red-white, like, we can just play our stuff and like not really worry about what they're doing. So we just get to see what kind of energy version, and of course it's the black version, which is good against us. Alright, so here's a Johnny. We don't really care about that though, as long as we can get ourselves enough like leeway to do what we need to. Now the opponent is just dead right here, so we have the Scholar, we're firing off Enter the Infinite, and the opponent is just dead. So I'm going to accelerate through all the Chrome Moxing right here. But this is the power of this deck. Like it's probably not as good as Show and Tell, you know, but it is sort of like an interesting puzzle to solve as you try and like execute these wins. So it feels good to just rack up some wins sometime and demoralize the energy players. So all right, Faithless Looting looking pretty good. No companion information, so we'll have to see where this takes us. Faithless Looting. And the question of whether to keep Double Fury or keep one of them. We do want to tuck something under the Chrome Mox at some point. I think it's probably better to get rid of... Well, obviously we're getting rid of Enter the Infinite, but we want to get rid of one of the Furies. And now here's the question. If the opponent has Hand Disruption, we'd rather Chrome Mox away the Fury. Alright, opponent has tap land. So, seeing that it's that land, I'm less concerned that it's a creature deck, so I'm going to tuck Fury. Though that does not help us actually cast Jace because there's too many red lands in play. Jace needs so many blue sources. Now the thing is, the opponent could be like a domain deck, so like getting rid of Fury could come back to bite us, but typically those colors and a Triome doesn't mean like it's an aggro deck. So still missing. We're going to get rid of Sink into Stupor. I actually decided to get rid of lands and still get rid of Sink into Stupor. I don't know, maybe we should have kept it as like a defensive spell, but I'm hoping to slam Jace, Wielder, Mysteries and just try and ride that. Opponent passing with potential 2 blue mana is not ideal. Because if we feed into a mana drain right now, this could completely unravel the game. Like, give them so much. Like, if we just try and slam Jace right here, which would be really nice if we could slam Jace and just tick it up and try and, like, set up the combo that way. Gonna definitely bin the fetch land. Trying to just play it patient though. But if this is a control deck, then this is it. The game may already functionally be lost right here if the opponent is savvy enough, and careful enough. So brainstorm into a fetch, into a hedge maze, and then we see Nexus of Fate hit the bin and they get reshuffled. So that is not one you see every day in Timeless. So I'm going to put a 1 ring on the stack, and there's the mana drain. So we'd rather that get eaten than our Jace, but that is still pretty horrible considering how much mana that's going to give them, and we know they're running extra turn spells. So, and there's the Wilderness Reclamation. So that was a deck, I don't know how many years ago in Standard, that weaponized Wilderness Reclamations, sort of extra mana on the end step, and then casting Nexus of Fate, and then used like Search for Azcanta and all sorts of stuff to chain extra turns. And I've actually thought about building this in Timeless. So this is pretty cool. This is the first time I've battled against it in Timeless, but I've thought myself about trying to build this style of deck. So opponent is going to use some of their mana with the Memory Deluge, and the fact that they're able to just camp out and like use card draw, and that there's probably a counter spell waiting for this is not great, but like there's only so much we can do. Like, we do have to try and run them out of answers eventually, but they do have the mana drain there, so it's looking pretty grim. So I'm just gonna time jump here because went through a bunch of their turns. Actually, they chained a bunch of extra turns, and this is their win condition here. Like, they played an Uro and they're escaping it right here, and that ends up being enough for me. So that one was a little bit tough, but we move on to the next one. So you could see that the control decks really beat up on this deck. Like, it is really hard to win. And we had a really quick, like, partial assembly of that last game, but just didn't quite get there. Uh-oh. Another blue-white land, and then a Phantasmal Shieldback and a Lurrus deck. Now, this is the type of deck I've been seeing pop up more often. It's a deck that really relies on the Flare of Denial. So they have a ton of, like, tiny creatures to, like, pitch to it, and just sort of can chip you away. And Phantasmal Shieldback gets you, like, your card back, like, almost no matter what. So that's, like, the value that it has. Plus, you can rebuy it with Lurrus, so getting rid of Izzet Charm there. This is a little bit of, like, a clunky hand for us. There's a Blood Crypt. So we could shock that in, hold up Izzet Charm for something. Decide just to play the fetch. Can pass the opponent. Once again, don't want to play into mana drain if you can avoid it, or at least make them do it on their turn. Alright, so the opponent has the Surveil land. And Wrath of the Skies hits the bin, which could be pretty strong against us. If we've already started to put Chrome Moxes in the battlefield, that could wreck us really badly. So now this is the tough part, is that they're just pecking away at our life with their shield back, and there's just not a lot we can do about it. So Now I put that in the play tab. I think that was a mistake. I don't know why I did. I should have just fired off an Izzet Charm there. Just make them have something on their end step, or either let us do it, or yeah. So I don't know why I didn't fire it off an end step. I think that was a mistake. So really trying to. I think I was being too patient there, but should have made them do something. All right, to have another surveil land. They keep it on top. Not a good sign. Alright, so they're shocking that land in. Also not a good sign, because either they're going to play something really strong right now, or they're going to hold up tons of stuff. So now I finally decide to fire off Izzet Charm. But now they could easily have like double counter spells, you know. So it would have been stronger than last, but they let us do it. So, and it sort of goes back to the question, like, do you counter like the tutor or like the payoff? And in this case, Izzet Charm sort of functioning as a tutor for us. So they're just letting us have that, and they're just going to keep up whatever counters they have for our turn, which I think is good play from them. So there's a Chrome Mox. Would have been nice way earlier to try and like get us ahead of schedule. So do we play a one ring? Decide just to hold on. I mean, the opponent doesn't have us under a ton of pressure, but it's just tough. Like at some point you have to try and make them run out of answers. So now I think maybe the reason I held off on the one ring last turn is because we can go land, Chrome Mox something, and have one ring plus, you know, the soft counter of Izzet Charm available. But then that's like getting rid of like our Izzet Charm, which is one of our best ways to interact with them. So, and we know the opponent has all action in hand. They missed a land drop last turn, so it's tough. So do we Blood Crypt and then Chrome Mox and decide just to keep playing it patient? Like, we are amassing Izzet Charms. Like, we can do a little bit of battling right here, though we have to remember that the swamp is not casting Izzet Charm right now. So alright, so the opponent is passing to us. So this is both of us just trying to sort of get into like a good position. I'm gonna Izzet Charm here, see if we can get a counter spell out of their hand. Nope, they're just letting it go through once again. And despite the like multiple Izzet Charms we've fired off, we still haven't found what we need. So forced with a sort of tough discard decision there. There's a Cathartic Reunion. So gonna fire off Faithless Looting here. Once again, like, we can't even really like, we don't even have anywhere near our combo set up. So, and that's one thing that can happen with this deck is, you know, if your copies of Enter the Infinite are somewhere in the bottom of your deck, you're gonna be in like big trouble. That could be an argument for running Gamble, you know. So it may actually honestly be better, because we don't even mind Gamble acting as an Entomb, you know, if we discard the Enter the Infinite. In fact, most of the stuff we like actively want in our graveyard. So maybe this deck should just straight up be running Gambles. Flashing Meth Faithless Looting, finally find a Scholar. But if I remember correctly, we're still searching for Enter the Infinite. So, but the opponent is just being really patient, just amassing answers in hand, and then now they realize they have a window to fire off Dig Through Time and just set up. So the opponent is playing this perfectly. They're just letting us sort of spin our wheels and just saving whatever interaction they have for like the real payoffs. Alright, so there's a Baleful Strix. Love the art on that one. It's so awesome. I actually haven't tried Baleful Strix in Timeless yet. I gotta make a deck for it sometime. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what are your favorite combo decks? I tend to like looking for like the convoluted, ridiculous ones, you know, like Repercussion combo. I'll link that one. That's a crazy one. And this one, like, I tend to like that. Well, anyway, it's going down now. So the opponent decides to use a Flare of Denial, sacrificing a creature, which counters our Cathartic Reunion. So We are still attempting to set up here, so going to attempt an Izzet Charm once again, but the fact that they like sacrificed to catch Flare of Denial means, yeah, they had more stuff. So there's a Spell Pierce. So the opponent is just full of answers. Now at this point I'm trying to decide, like, okay, maybe I should try and Reanimate Scholar and put a One Ring into play, you know, just to try and like really get the cards flowing. But yeah, I don't know, it's a tough call. Maybe I should have just done it there because they had the least amount of mana available. Here, this is a tough blow because they're Mystic Sanctuarying the Flare back on top. So we know they have at least one answer and two different ways to free cast it. So it's looking like the opponent has all their bases covered at this point. So checking the graveyard once again. And we at this point still have not found an Enter the Infinite. And also doing an Izzet Charm check, and we actually have expended all of our Izzet Charms, so we're not interacting on the stack anymore with them. So it's a little bit tough. Brain Surge from the opponent is really, I mean, who knows how many Flare of Denials they have in hand right now. Plus Spell Pierces, so it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts with these Baleful Strixes just sort of chipping away. And there's a Psychic Frog, so that one is going to close the game a lot more quickly. So finally there's an Enter the Infinite, but we are like out of discard spells. So this is me just trying to make something work. I'm going to attempt to Reanimate Scholar right here to like hit a discard spell, but yeah, the opponent obviously has counter spells, so we are going to pack it in. Well, that was pretty fun. This is a wild and crazy deck, and it's definitely not the strongest deck in Timeless, but it's like fun and pretty unique to Timeless, since like, you know, you need the Chrome Moxes to pull it off, and so like it's pretty special in that regard. And yeah, there's some interesting things going on, and definitely some stuff I was thinking about. Surgical Extraction is super strong against us. I was even thinking about playing our own to sort of combat opposing Surgicals, but I think that just dilutes the game plan too much. I honestly think that this deck should be running Gambles, since like the signature card and the Infinite, like we want it actively in the graveyard, so we don't care if we discard it. So might be worth it to reconfigure it and put some Gambles in there. I'll have to think about it. Strike It Rich is a possibility to try and like accelerate to like your 4 mana plays, but that just adds a bit more like air to the deck, so I don't know if I like really love it. There are some other like discard or graveyard filling things, and like I mentioned in the video, like this was originally a Blood Moon deck, and I ended up putting Furies in there as like defense against the creature decks, but honestly, like maybe you should put the Blood Moons back in there. The Furies, like, I don't know, they're not really part of our core plan, and like if we throw the Blood Moons in there, like it could possibly mess up the creature decks as well. So it's just something to think about. There's also the trick about putting a Lorien Revealed in there to empty the library if necessary for the Thassa's Oracle trigger. And there's also the possibility of putting some backup like whammy cards to hit with either Sphinx or Mizzix Mastery that you can possibly win the game with, like Magma Opus or Elemental Masterpiece, which can put themselves in the graveyard. But that dilutes like your core combo if you go too in on backup plans, you know. So, but yeah, that's the deck. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.